Hi Jaideep, hi Isha.
Hi Sanjana,
Hello.
how are you?
Hi.
Good, I'm great. It's so good to have both of you on this and to be able to do this, considering Isha, you're in Germany.
Yes.
And you know, we had to do it virtually, but it's great. It's so exciting with the India Art Fair around the corner. And you know, I think this chat is something that will definitely help the audience to connect with the art and understand the concept beforehand. So, I mean, both of you have seen the concept note that I've written, the curatorial note, and the idea is to explore the mind and materiality. Both of your art explores this primarily, and the works created for the series explores that. So I'd just like to know, just to begin, you know, your thoughts around how much do you think, you know, the role of the environment influences our mind, and vice versa, engage with the environment. Anyone? Isha, do you want to start?
No, I think Jaideep can start.
Jaideep,
Okay.
yes.
Well, I feel that we are very much a part of the environment and you can't ignore it. I mean, we are, we're a human species. We're just one of the animal species that occupies the planet. But for some reason, you know, we think we are the only ones there. So obviously there is a very strong feeling towards our environment. And in my works in this particular group, I was very strongly influenced by that idea that I wanted to play with how we occupy the planet, how we, you know, map our spaces within that planet, how we kind of take colors from nature, how we take, elements from nature as a part of our work. So that's the essence of, the way I've used my the works in this series. It's I call it cartograph fiction. So it's like a fictionalized version of cartography, kind of, you know, something that you would want to create, but not necessarily exists in its natural form. I hope that's kind of,
yeah, of course. But also interestingly, I've realized that your works have this mixed media, that a lot of the mediums in this mixed media are self-invented by you. So can you tell me some more about the materials that you've used in these works? And also another element, because you were talking about the surroundings and the environment, you know, your works have this shiny metallic surface that, you know, when you and I have spoken in the past, you've mentioned how that's almost like a metaphor for being a reflection of us and our society and our culture in many ways, right? So tell us a bit more about the medium.
Well, I use, of course, paints and on canvas because somehow I like to create a little parameter within the canvas. But I'm using new age materials. I like to use, you know, steel and resins and, things that we didn't have access to, you know, over the years. These things are being invented on a daily basis. Every day there's something new and exciting coming up. And I like the idea of being able to use all of these elements into the work. You're right about the reflectivity of the work. I think that anything that's reflective reflects the life. It's like a mirror. You stand in front of the mirror and you see a part of you that you don't see because you don't look at yourself as such. So in a sense, using those highly reflective surfaces like steel and metals, I like to use that to be able to both be dynamic in terms of color. So if you walk past in a red shirt, it would change colors, or a blue shirt, it would change colors, you know. So one is dynamic, and second thing, as a surface, it itself is unmoved. It's just reading what is going on around it. So that's the idea of using metallics in most cases.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you, Jaideep. Moving on to you, Isha. So, I mean, I know that your works are actually interestingly created with the intent of, sort of soothing the mind, and you use textiles to do that. So tell me a bit more about your practice and how it ties in with mind and materiality as a theme.
Yeah, so I think we as humans, like Jaideep already pointed out, like we're part of a larger biological system, and we've been living, our ancestors have been living in the savannas for years and years, and now we sort of have uprooted ourselves and like placed ourselves into these built environments where we completely lack a connect with the spaces that we inhabit, as opposed to when you're in natural surroundings, whether it is on a hill, in a forest, and those kind of spaces. So I think I've always wondered, how can you sort of rebuild those disconnected chords that we have now that we live in our built environments, and kind of recreate them with via the medium of materials, and also whether there is a certain deeper level of connection that we can establish with our material surroundings, which are not necessarily the surroundings that our ancestors used to live in. So my work sort of always questions, and I always sort of keep wondering as to how we can have more meaningful experiences with the objects, any kind of material experiences that we have around us. And that's pretty much the premise of my work, so to say.
And why textile? Just out of curiosity.
So, I mean, the very simple answer to that is that I'm not a trained artist. I'm more of I come as a textile designer, and hence my work is more material led. And textiles is something, during my design studies as well, textiles is something that I kind of very naturally gravitated towards, because I think there's some sort of very invisible magic that happens when you're working very physically with a material. And I think that's something that I've always enjoyed as a child, working with the material in space, So I think it was just a very natural choice for me to choose textiles, and I'm formally trained in textiles, so hence that's pretty much become the predominant sort of medium to my work.
It's lovely. Also, Isha, you've mentioned the term biophilia as an important concept you're investigating through your art. So just to sort of lay it down to the audience in simplistic terms, what does biophilia mean?
So biophilia is a hypothesis, more than, it's not a proven concept really, but a hypothesis that we as humans have this sort of genetically predetermined connect with our natural surroundings, and it's basically this very unknown affiliation that we sort of share with them, with the natural world, and hence there's a lot of like well-being and restorative value that we find within these natural spaces, and that's pretty much what biophilia is about.
Okay, very interesting, very interesting. So for me, as curator, the reason this was an important concept to explore was because, I think that our fundamental way of sort of experiencing the world and interacting with it is creative. And even neuroscience has been exploring this link, because we take in visual data and then we sort of, there are these brain models that are at play that then takes that and creates these experiential worlds in art, which is very interesting to see how we take limited data, but then we have unlimited, infinite interpretations of that data, right? And that's what art is all about. So, I think that this fundamental nature, the way both of you have explored it with your art, will come through very strongly at the India Art Fair. Now, how does it feel to be participating, both of you? Isha, you as a first timer, and Jaideep, you, of course, you've participated before. But how does it feel to be a part of it after the pandemic and sort of getting back into fairs? Jaideep?
So I think I'm very excited about it. I'm one is that, it's always the conversation that starts after you complete a work that makes the work alive. It's not just when you finish painting it, because you can never finish painting a work if you want to keep going at it, or you can never finish constructing a work in some sense unless you keep going at it. But there's always that conversation that starts afterwards, and the conversation requires people. Without that, you can't have a conversation. So when people look at something and they come up with their interpretations, it actually adds or makes an additional environment to the work. So, sometimes I do a work, and when people ask me, what do you mean by doing this? And I tell them, what do you think about it? And their interpretations are a new view even for me, because I never thought of it like that, but that's how they see it. Everybody is unique. Everybody has their own sort of way of looking at something. And I think that starts with the fact that it becomes public and people are able to comment and talk with you. So yeah, I mean, far nicer than being on Zoom for sure.
Absolutely. And what about you, Isha?
I mean, for me, I'm pretty much a first timer at a fair, and I think for me, it's been more of an exploration of my artistic journey, because I always find myself sort of torn between being a designer and an artist. And for me, it's almost like my first step into the art world, and that's super exciting for me because I'm still trying to discover myself. I'm still trying to figure out what my work is all about. I mean, though I can still put in words, it's still like my work still feels like a scratch on the surface at the moment, and I just feel like it's a great platform for me to start showcasing and then bounce from there. So I'm super excited.
That's great. That's so nice. No, but because you just spoke about engagement, Jaideep, I would like to sort of bring up another point, which is how would both of you like the audience to be engaging with your work? Some artists like to give descriptive, texts beforehand or write-ups, so something that helps the audience make sense of the art before they engage with it. And some artists like it to be ambiguous, so that there is more potential for interpretation. But how would both of you like your art to be engaged with? And also, Isha, I completely forgot to talk about it, but your kinetic sculpture. I'd like you to sort of talk a bit more about that and about how, again, an audience should receive it or engage with it according to you.
Yeah.
Do you want to start, Isha?
Yeah, sure. So talking about my kinetic work, it's sort of become like an extension of the same sort of line of thought I've been having about how can we make our built environments more sort of meaningful, and how can we create more deeper connects. And from there, sort of, from there it kind of began where I thought of introducing kinetic as a medium as well, to kind of explore what it could be for a material to be alive. What could it be for a material to be its own autonomous entity? And I think few of my first works were about just creating a breathing fabric, something that kind of inhales and exhales. And I think that I didn't even have to put words to that work, because it was almost like anybody could connect and tell that it's breathing. So I feel like there are these certain, what can I say? There are these certain factors that make us alive, whether it is breathing, whether it is an emotion, whether it is a certain personality type or habit. And I think that it's sort of become my intent to even explore these topics of bringing emotion to a material, for that matter, where what would a material which is shy look like, or feel like, or how can I bring in more personality to this material that I'm kind of obviously pre-programming and creating movement on, but also how can this moving object then interact with the viewer, and what could it make the viewer feel? So that's something that's super interesting for me to observe and kind of investigate further. So
that's very interesting, because I've always believed that every piece of art is like a person. It's either noisy or it's calm, or it's vibrant, or it's a bit more solemn. And that's an interesting way to go forward. So very cool. And you, Jaideep, what about you in terms of the engagement with your pieces?
Well, like Isha said, she's just scratched the surface. I'm still scratching the surface too. So yeah, I think your entire life you're going to be scratching the surface to reinvent, to recreate, to see how things speak to you, how we speak to it. So in a way, I'm hoping that our works together in the same booth would have the same kind of interactivity, when your works would be breathing and mine would be watching it. So yeah, they would have that element involved, and possibly that itself is a conversation.
Yes.
Right? Absolutely.
So we have also, I also feel that everything is like a puzzle. Things come together. In my work, I try to do that. I try to, improvise as I go along. I love doing that. I love the fact that it has a life of its own and it keeps on evolving. Like all of life around us, we build, we move into spaces, we travel, we map, we catalog, and then in a space like the booth that we're going to be exhibiting in, if they interact with each other, they become a cohesive body and bring on an additional conversation, from people who are visiting the space. So yeah, I think that's exciting.
No, so I mean, because I've just put together the layout of the booth, I can tell you that your pieces are interacting very, very, very well, and it's going to look stunning. Thank you, Jaideep. Thank you, Isha.
Thank you so much
to having your works at the art fair, and I'm excited for the audience to engage with it further. Thank you.